Okay, so once we have stitched on our waistband, which you want to make sure that's right side to right side, it's fairly easy to tell when you're doing your waistband because your interfacing will be on one side. Then that will be flipping over to your inside of your skirt. So to make that lay very flat, you want to do a stitch on your waistband. So what we're going to do is we're going to understitch. Now understitch can be an interesting thing if you're not sure about it. It doesn't really mean you're stitching under something, it's just what's not going to be seen. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to stitch this seam allowance to your waistband. So you can either do it from the wrong side or the right side. I like to do it and then trim off my excess seam allowance there, just so that I have a clear idea of where I need to trim it. Now, it is important you want to press it. That way you know exactly where everything is. Now, when you were stitching on your waistband, you want to also have made sure that all of your seams are flat, okay, and that your darts were still going in the right direction. You don't want to kind of have it flip over, as that can happen sometimes and it creates bulk. Then if that happened, you do need to rip it out, sorry. But that's really the only way to fix it. Luckily, you were cautious enough to stitch it very carefully. You can also pin extra to keep it flat. That's typically what I do. So to do your understitching, I'm going to do it from the right side of my waistband, just because that gives me a very clear space of where I want to mark, and I find it is very easy to make everything flat that way. So we're just going to put this here. Now you don't really, it's not a seam, an extra seam allowance. You want to really hit, you're going to put your stitching right along here. Just that little tiny 1/16 of an inch from this seam into the waistband. It's not very much, so you don't need to try and get this whole excess here. Most of this will be trimmed off, and that's why I like to do my understitching before I trim it, just to make sure that I do get that flat so that then you don't have any extra bulk. If it is easier for you to tell where you want to do it, you can do it from this direction too. However, because of the color of my thread, it's not going to show up as easy this way, and I'm choosing to just do it on the right side. Either one is correct. So you just want to make sure that that extra seam allowance is under there, and just kind of line it up very carefully. You might even want to place your needle first, then lift your presser foot to see, okay, yes, that's exactly where I want it. So for me, what it's going to be, and an easy way once you figure out where your needle needs to be, is that your presser foot might actually be part of your guide, and for me it is. I want to be right along there, and just stitch along there very flat. Now if the edge of my presser foot is on my seam, then it matches up very nicely for where I need to be, and it gives me that ideal space. And so you just go ahead and stitch. You also might want to go ahead and make it a little taut. Pull it a bit, make it very flat, because you don't want to have any puckering. That's one thing that you do really want to avoid, especially on a waistband, is any kind of puckering or extra bulk. You want to make it as flat as it possibly can be, so that when it's against your body, it lays flat. So we're just going to finish this all the way down, and then then we will flip it. And if you can see here, there is my nice little understitching. So that then when I do flip this and iron this flat, it's going to be just a very flat stitch, like so. The next step, once we finish stitching this, is going to be to iron it, of course, and then we will be hand stitching the edge of the waistband to the skirt. So I will go ahead and show you how to do that. It is something that you do just want to pick up a single thread. Again, we'll go over how to do it. So for right now, just go ahead and do your understitching. See you soon.